We're live.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular Village Board meeting. This is Tuesday, February 19th. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Simpson, roll call.
Sure. Trustee Vito?
Here.
Trustee Papantos?
Present.
Trustee Lang?
Here.
Trustee Vogel?
Here.
Trustee Kruger?
Present.
Trustee Brady informed the board he would not be here this evening, and President Horker.
Here. You have before you the minutes of the special meeting for February 4th, 2019. I need a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Lang, second, Trustee Vogel. Roll call.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
President Horker.
Yes, you also have before you the minutes of the regular meeting of February 4th, 2019. I need a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Kruger.
Second.
Trustee Papantos. Roll call.
Kruger Papantos?
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
President Horker.
Yes. Any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes this evening.
Appointments, confirmations, administration of oaths. Chief Dunn.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. Laura, if you'd step up. Tonight we're going to be swearing in one of our new officers, Laura Joschko. You can come all the way over. Laura's from the Wheaton area, currently living in Chicago. She's a graduate of the Wheaton-Warrenville High School system, graduate of the Illinois State University in 2012 with a BS in Criminal Justice. Laura graduated from the Illinois State Police Training Academy in 2015, and we stole her today from Oakton Community College, where she was serving as a police officer. Laura is here today with family and friends, and I'll allow her to introduce them.
Okay, from left to right, I guess, I have my boyfriend's brother, Dan, my boyfriend, Michael Mickey, who's a Chicago cop, my mom, Kathy, my dad, Phil, my boyfriend's mom, Janine, and his stepdad, Scott.
Thank you. And Laura, welcome to the Wheeling family in Wheeling. You'll enjoy the support of the officers, some who came here to join us tonight and to welcome you. It's our job to finish up your training and to make sure you get home safely to your family and friends every night, and we will do that part. You enjoy the support of a wonderful board, a public who really, for the most part, really enjoys the police department, and we help make it fun for the village, right? And with that, I will turn over to our clerk for the oath.
Could you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Laura Joschko.
Joschko.
Yes. Having been appointed to the position of police officer
I, Laura Joschko, having been appointed to the position of police officer
in the police department of the village of Wheeling,
in the police department in the village of Wheeling,
in the counties of Cook and Lake,
in the counties of Cook and Lake,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United
and the
States
Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of police officer
of police officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Laura's asked her mother hand or pin on her badge. And again, Laura, welcome to the village of Wheeling and your new family. And again, the fire department, the police department, the department heads, our elected officials, and our residents, they really do support our mission, and they are great support to everything we do. And I think you'll find this is a great place.
welcome to the family. I would like to thank your family for sharing you with us in your hopefully career here. I would like a motion to recess for some refreshments in the lobby for about 10 minutes. Motion, please.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Kruger, second.
Second.
Trustee Papantos, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Adjourn for about 10 minutes. We'll be back here 6:45. Good evening, everyone. I need a motion to reconvene into regular session.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Papantos.
Second.
Second, Trustee Vogel. All in favor? Or no, roll call.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. Citizens' concerns and comments. Clerk Simpson.
Members of the public may address the board with comments regarding only those items that are relevant to village business. No citizen shall speak for more than 5 minutes without consent of the board. Members of the general public who wish to address the board must sign the request to speak form prior to the commencement of the public meeting. Mr. Neff?
Just as a reminder, this is a time for citizens to make their comments and express their concerns, and for the board to listen. Neither the board nor staff will be engaging in conversation or answering questions.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name's Steve Neff. I'm a Wheeling resident. I'm one of the founding members of Citizens Against Runway Expansion. Again, my topic is about Chicago Executive Airport. There was a letter to the editor in the paper from Chairman Court Harris. It seems to be a repetitive theme that's being generated by the airport, that nothing's been decided about, a longer runway. It's premature, that, for anybody to get involved and voice a concern about the expansion. So my take on that is, I'm still trying to get the word out. I don't think half the town is even aware of this is even being discussed at the airport. The robust public engagement that the master plan is mentioned that they were going to do is pretty much fallen short. One example I can use is the residents in Mount Prospect had no idea. The only reason they figured it out is because somebody spotted a yard sign in their neighborhood off of River Road and Camp McDonald. So I would also like to make a comment about the actual stakeholder involvement groups. None of the residents are actually invited to be included in that. But some feedback that I did get from some of the SIG members that attended. Sandy Fromm from Northbrook, she's the village president, said that she was surprised that they only gave her 2 options to, lay out a 5,700-foot runway acetate or a 6,700-foot acetate, but there was not a do-nothing option. So these two runway options, if you look at the size and the borders of the airport, they would actually, if you include the runway safety areas, they're going to go beyond the existing roadway boundaries of Chicago Executive. And, you know, I'm not sure how you could actually rotate the runway or re-angle the runway so it does not go beyond the existing borders. So I just, you know, just wanted to come up here and say that I just wanted to help get the word out to my fellow residents. And, you know, if it's premature, when is the right time to actually, you know, address the expansion of the airport? I mean, at some point, the genie's going to be out of the bottle, and I think the residents should be part of the conversation now and not wait till the decision's already been made. That's all for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neff.
Mr. Belagorski?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Anatoly Belogorsky, and I'm a resident of Wheeling since 2017, when I retired from Illinois EPA after service for more than 23 years and reunited with my family here. My concern and subject is definitely Chicago Executive, our Chicago Executive Airport. And I became aware about that since end of December, and after that I studied a lot by myself, applying my certain engineering knowledge and judgment. But it's my today comments not about environmental issue. It's a very separate topic. It's about different stuff. I would like, I will give you some numbers, and then it's up to you to decide where we are in this project. According to the consultant of Chicago Executive Airport, because I attended last meeting in January, the approximate cost of potential runway expansion will be around $200 million. Because very possibly if runway will be expanded into the south, across Palatine Road, you have to put the runway bridge and put the tunnel for the traffic. So it will bring enormous cost and enormous problem to entire community. But I'll give you another numbers. Because most of the customers of the airport, according to Master Plan Phase 2, coming from pretty wealthy communities to the east and north of Wheeling and Mount Prospect, and Prospect Heights, excuse me. Okay, per capita income in Wheeling is about $31,000. Prospect Heights, $32,000. Buffalo Grove, $49,000. Glenview, $39,000. Northbrook, $63,000. Riverwoods, $81,000. Glencoe, $122,000. Vinetka, $110,000. Highland Park, $81,000. Deerfield, $72,000. Lincolnshire, $70,000, and Lake Forest, $98,000. So why I'm talking about these numbers? Because very few, if any, customers coming from middle-class communities in Prospect Heights and in Wheeling. In my research, with the help of Federal Aviation Administration website, showed that only 9 residents in Wheeling, they're owning planes, and these planes stationed in our airport. And only 6 non-aviation businesses from Wheeling or Prospect Heights just owning planes. All other 19 businesses that owning the planes, they're aviation-related businesses and servicing these customers coming to the airport. Needless to say that flying business jets, it's very expensive. Flying mid-size or large business jets cost at least $5,000 an hour. and with plenty overseas flights, so it will cost you dozens of $1,000. So it will give you the sense how this airport serving people well outside of our community, and probably very few, if any, residents of Wheeling or Prospect Heights. So this is up to your consideration how you'll use these numbers, whatever, when time to come to make the decision about approval or disapproval of the master plan and expansion of this runway. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Wilson?
Hi. I was talking to one of the trustees earlier before the meeting and asked what his thoughts were on having future airport meetings in a larger venue. Earlier this week, I emailed the village manager and village president Horker, and also the chairman of the airport board, Court Harris, and as well as Jamie Abbott, the airport director. And I expressed concern about the very small venue of 1020 Plants Road for the meetings going forward. I think that closer to the April 2nd election day, when the referendum will be on the ballot, I think that you're going to see growing interest. I also think that there's a lot of people that are homebound that are of a certain age that they're not comfortable driving at night, if these meetings are at night. I would like to see the future airport meetings done here at Village Hall where they could be televised, because it's going to affect everybody in the community if this airport expands. And I think since we have the facilities, they're already built. I don't know how Prospect Heights would feel about that. The trustee earlier this evening said, you know, it's like owned by two entities, but they seem to be open to the idea of a larger venue. 1020 Plant Road is just kind of a scary road at night to drive down, and I don't know if they have more than 25 parking spots. So that's my hope, that all the airport meetings between now and the election day for the referendum would be more easily accessible to the public. And as long as we have these wonderful facilities of the cameras to be televised, I would like to see it televised as well. So I hope that you move forward with that. Today I was at the Daly Center Courthouse and I heard the oral arguments for the summary judgment for the Edgar County Watchdogs filing a lawsuit for information against the Village of Wheeling. And they won, and the judge ordered the production of records regarding the swipe card records of the village manager and I think another department head for a 30-day period. And there was 1 day for surveillance footage to be released. And your attorney, Mallory Maluzzi, said that she was going to check with her client, which would be this board, to see if they wanted to file an appeal and take it to the appellate court. And I just spoke to the attorney afterwards, and they said that that is an area where if a judge makes the determination, instead of settling, forgive me, I misspoke, that if it goes to the appellate court, you could be responsible for the plaintiff's legal fees even through the appellate court. If the judge makes the determination in any FOIA under statute, the public body who loses the lawsuit and is forced to produce records is subject to paying the plaintiff's legal fees as well as your own. And there's also a risk of civil penalties if they find you to be have operated in bad faith. The one thing that was concerning is one of the case laws that your attorney was relying upon was 100 years old. And I don't fault her over 100 years old that they mentioned in the oral arguments. And I don't think that's her fault. I think that she can only do what she's got to do with what her client gives her to work with. And I think it was very much a slam dunk case where they knew they were going to win. I don't think she had any recent case law she could use to really help her win the case. And of course, she offered some that were more recent, but she would use a portion of it, and opposing counsel would come back with other paragraphs from the very same ruling that overshadowed the smaller points that she brought forth. So when regarding the public money, especially with something as far as the hours that your sole employee, the village manager, the time he enters work with those swipe cards, I would hope that you would not want to spend public money to, on legal fees to prevent you from properly evaluating him, to knowing, what time he actually strolls into Village Hall over a 30-day period with his swipe card. Of course, there'll be days that, he might go in with someone else, but by and large, I would think he's probably using his swipe card most days. So I think it's a poor use of public money. I think it's your attorney had absolute zeal, but I think that the facts of a case, she's limited in what she can do. In the future, I know my interviews with Pat before the election, I said when you were a trustee, did you guys in closed session ever ask the attorneys, what are the percentage, the chances of us winning this case, And he said that, that nobody had ever asked that question, but within that context, the only thing he ever heard the attorney say is, we'll fight our best for you, or we'll do our very best we can. But moving forward in the future, whenever you decide to spend, vote in those executive sessions to pursue a lawsuit, I would really ask what you think the chances are that you would win before you spend the tax dollars. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
That's it.
Staff reports. Mr. Jennings, tell me about the station area plan.
I relocated. I'll be speaking on another agenda item in a minute here. So thank you. The station area plan, as the board is aware, we're in the midst of an update to the plan. It's the document, the portion of the comprehensive plan that pertains to the area directly around the train station. It is outlived its usefulness, and we have been in the process of working with a consultant for several months now to update it. We went through an involved charrette process, a 3-day working meeting with a consultant. They have taken the feedback from that process, and they've produced a draft document. We now have that draft document. By the end of this week, we'll have it posted on our website. There's a survey to obtain feedback from the public. Anyone who wishes to review the draft plan and provide feedback, we'd really appreciate it. It'll help us take the plan to the next step from the draft form into the final form. So by the end of the week, you'll see links to that on our website. And if you have any questions on where we are, I'd be happy to answer them.
Looks like no. Clerk Simpson, consent agenda.
Consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered after all other agenda items. 11A, resolution adopting the Des Plaines River watershed-based plan established by the Lake County Stormwater Management Commission that addresses the prevention and mitigation of flood damages and the improvement of water quality within the Des Plaines River watershed. 11B, resolution authorizing the village manager to execute a one-year contract extension with Duct's Root Control Incorporated for the 2019 sanitary sewer root control program in the amount of $69,212.27. 11C, resolution granting final acceptance of public and private improvements within the Northgate Crossing Phase 3 subdivision. 11D, resolution granting a tag day permit to Misericordia Heart of Mercy to conduct a tag day event on April 26th and 27th, 2019. 11E, ordinance amending Title IV, taxes, business regulations, and licenses of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 4.84, rental residential property. 11F, resolution authorizing the village president and clerk to execute a temporary construction easement for the Illinois Department of Transportation related to certain construction and grading work.
Any questions from the board? Gallery?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion, trustee Vogel, second.
Second.
Trustee Papantos, roll call, please.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes.
13A,
Yes, ma'am, new business.
a resolution authorizing the execution of a declaration of a restrictive covenant for the former Fox Point Mobile Home Park property, 573-601 South Milwaukee Avenue.
Mr. Jennings, please explain.
Thank you, President Horker. The Fox Point relocation program, which was managed by the Village of Wheeling after we received an allocation of a grant from Cook County for the purpose of disaster recovery to prevent additional loss from repetitive flooding at the property. The program involved the relocation of the residents to safe and sanitary housing elsewhere, the acquisition of the property itself, the demolition of the mobile homes, and then the restoration work, which involved removing the road, removing any material that was left behind by the demolition from the soil, bringing in clean topsoil, and then seeding the property. The project has come mostly to a close. We're wrapping up the last few items with Cook County on the accounting end, and the funding source being a federal grant. There's a requirement that the village, as the recipient of these funds, ensure that no development occurs on this property which would subject the future property owner to a loss from repetitive flooding. So the grant regulations require an open space restriction. The land must be held as open space in perpetuity. It must be owned by a public body in perpetuity. And the item that is in front of you is a declaration of a restrictive covenant that would achieve that purpose. It would be essentially the last remaining task that we have for the completion of the program. It's somewhat anticlimactic. I think the bulk of the work was done in 2017 and 2018 with the help of essentially every department here at the Village of Wheeling. There was a difficult period where we had to adjust our game plan in response to a secondary flood event, and everybody stepped up from human services to public works to fire to police. Finance has been extremely helpful throughout the entire program, and of course community development staff. So at this point we're nearing the end. I appreciate everybody's patience with the project. I appreciate the support of the board, and to get it to this point, it's certainly been a long road. So I'm looking forward to wrapping up the last step here.
Thank you. Trustee Papantos, then Trustee Vogel.
First of all, Andrew, thank you, because I know community development did the bulk of the work on this nonstop for 3 years, or seemed forever. What was the total amount of the grant?
It was just under $4 million.
So it was $4 million of federal money that helped people achieve a better living spot.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Papantos. Trustee Vogel, then Trustee Kruger.
Yes, also, Andrew, thank you, and everybody else that was involved in the project. I know a lot of you put in some long hours, and we did have some problems, but you overcame them so great. Have we received all the funds, all the reimbursements that we have coming?
We're waiting on the last handful. We had several. We were doing them on a rolling basis every 30 days. So the last few that we submitted, we have not received back. The county's been in contact with us, though, so we do expect that in the near future.
So we'll wrap it up this year.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Vogel. Trustee Kruger, then Trustee Lang.
Thank you, President Horker. Director Jennings, really nice job, and everybody in the village who helped community development get through this. There was a consultant that worked with the relocation. They've been relieved now?
They were relieved as of August 30th of 2018.
Okay, and all the residents have been relocated?
That's correct.
Outstanding. Way to go. So we'll find something to do with your extra time.
Thank you, Trustee Kruger. Trustee Lang.
I want to glom onto everyone's thank you for sticking with this. Mark, and you before Andrew, you starting this out too, and you guys did a good thing, you know, and just want to thank you for sticking with this, because people needed to move out of there, and I know it was tough, but I think they're better off now. So, nice job.
Thank you, Trustee Lang. Trustee Vito.
Yeah, Andrew, good work on that. What are we planning to do over there in perpetuity now that we have a covenant that we can't?
Well, the game plan for the time being is to maintain it as it is. It'll be, I assume, added to our mow list for the year. We own the property adjacent to it, which we're trying to market for development. So for the time being, it will be to just maintain it as it is. Of course, the grant doesn't restrict future improvement for open space, but for the time being, it'll be passive open space.
Well, we can do like a park or something, like benches or
It is
something
possible.
simple.
It is possible the grant doesn't prevent you from using it. It just can't be used for a commercial development, residential development. It has to be held as open space.
All right, thanks.
If there are no other questions, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion, trustee Kruger.
Second?
Trustee Lang.
Trustee Lane?
Sure.
Okay,
Flip a coin.
okay. Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
President Harper?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
13B?
Yes, ma'am.
Ordinance amending Title 14 Fire Chapter 14.01 Fire Code and Title 15 Buildings and Construction, Chapter 15.01 of the Wheeling Municipal Code.
Mr. Spondulis.
Thank you. The presentation you are about to see is the culmination of a year's worth of work, particularly from the Community Development Department and the Fire Department, going through the codes as read in the title of the item for an update. We, the Village of Wheeling, have historically gone through this process about every 6 years. It is not a requirement that a community update codes as often as we do, but we, and of course following your policy direction, recognize the value of doing so for the protection of the residents, of the businesses. It is a significant contributor into our ISO rating, as well as a number of flood-related, flood insurance, flood mitigation, flood, really anything related to our ability to manage flood grants and such, are all going to be based on what our codes say. We had the opportunity to work with a consultant, Barb Detmer, who is here to answer questions should you have them. Andrew, as the building director, will be making this evening's presentation. And again, I can't overstress, this really was a year's worth of work, and am very proud of the summation that was provided to you. If you can see, there is a dolly full of books next to the podium. That summary that was included in your packet references all those many tens of thousands of pages. Every line gone through to make sure that what we are doing is appropriate and fitting with the policy direction provided by this board. So in general, what you are going to hear are a number of required changes as part of the process of adopting the recent codes, but none of what you are hearing is counter to what this board has decided previously through local amendments. And some of that's going to be discussed as well as far as what is now a local amendment, what has been absorbed into standard code language, et cetera. But for the general public to understand, we're making no sweeping changes when it comes to what this board has set forth in its policy previously. With that, Director Jennings.
Thank you very much. I won the coin toss with Keith, so I got to represent the team up here. As Manager Spondulis has just stated, this is a collaborative effort. Took over a year. A lot of the heavy lifting was done by the fire department in coordination with Barb Detmer from ICCI, Ron Antor, our fire inspector, and Deputy Chief McGreal, and the building inspector Mike Boros also assisted on this project. As John just mentioned, it is something that the village has undertaken every 6 years. I'll go through the process, through the background. This doesn't have to be all that formal. If you do have a question, it's fine to stop me. If that's not something that I am able to answer, I'm sure somebody on the team can come up and help out. So just by way of background, the the reason that we update our codes every 6 years is that we have placed great importance on keeping up with the standards that are modified from time to time in the construction industry. There's new products, there's new methods of installation, and we have felt that adopting this package of codes regularly ensures that we are doing our best to make sure that we're on top of any advancements in technology, any advancements in methods of installation, and just for consistency across the board, we've tended to do this as a package deal. These are minimum standards. Chief McKaiser likes to point out that people are absolutely welcome to go above and beyond the minimum standards, but this is our decision as adopting the minimum standards for construction and maintenance of property, existing buildings in the Village of Wheeling. Technically, the thing that is in front of you tonight is a ordinance adopting each reference to the codes. So when you look at the fire code, Title 14 of the Municipal Code, you look at the building code, Title 15 of the Municipal Code, there are references to each of the codes that we're choosing to adopt. So those sections of the code would be replaced with the sections that are listed in the draft ordinance in front of you. And the way that it's broken down, it's an adoption of each code, and then any local amendments. I'll go through some of that just as an overview in a minute here. The adoption of the code, should it pass tonight, would be effective March 1st. We've placed notices on our website. We have notices with our building permit application alerting the public, contractors, architects, and such to the fact that these new codes are scheduled for adoption and will be in effect as of that date. So when we talk about the building code, what is it that we're talking about? It's actually a collection of codes. If you look at the top of this, the text is small, but the International Building Code is produced by the International Code Council. We adopt the International Building Code, which applies to commercial construction, industrial construction, and larger multifamily buildings. The companion document, the International Residential Code, specifically applies to single-family, two-family, and townhome residential construction. We adopt, along with those, the ICC, the supporting documents, the I-Code family. We adopt the International Fire Code, the International Fuel Gas Code, the International Mechanical Code, the International Property Maintenance Code. So that represents most of what you would refer to as the building code here in Wheeling, the building code and the fire code. I'll go through some of the changes for this year. I just want to use this graphic to point out that we do have the choice, as Manager Spondilis stated, to adopt these when we adopt them. We do not have the choice. If you look down here at the bottom, these are mandated by the state. The state of Illinois mandates the adoption of the state plumbing code. So the reference that you see in the adopting ordinance is a reference to the current state plumbing code as amended from time to time. The Illinois State Energy Conservation Code, referred to as the Energy Code, is also mandated by the state, and the Illinois Accessibility Code is mandated as well. So the last thing I want to point out on this graphic before I move on is you do not have, for all intents and purposes, you do not have the ability to amend those codes. You can. The process for amending them is burdensome, generally discouraged, involves demonstrating to the state of Illinois that you have a public health protection that is necessary. Highlighted in blue here, we also have the choice of the electrical code. We use the NEC, and this current adoption would upgrade us to the 2017 version of that code as well.
Excuse me, Director Jennings, the solar energy portion is new?
Yes.
Do we have any installations about to take place, or have we?
We have some. So the adoption of our new code will take effect as of March 1st. So the ones that are in the hopper right now will be reviewed under our existing code. So we do have several in the works, and that's pretty typical for when you adopt a new code. You do have to have a line of when your review is going to change over.
Thank you.
As I just mentioned, it's the code package, the I-Code family, comes with the support of those additional those codes. The high burden for amending a state code I just mentioned. it's important to point out that the impact of the state code, probably the most dramatic example I could give is back in 2014, the state essentially changed the way it looked at the plumbing code and changed the way that it wanted to treat local amendments to the plumbing code. The 2014 version of the code basically voided all of the local amendments to the state code. So any amendment that we had, we've tried to remove them since we did our last code adoption here. So we've had, for example, the interpretation of the state with respect to combined service. That is not part of this adoption. We took care of it in the middle. We removed that amendment when we were notified by the state that the way that we handled the combination of fire, the fire water supply and the domestic water supply needed to be in keeping with the state standards. So there's nothing in this adoption that deviates at all from the standard state code. Just to go back real quick, that also means that advancements in technology that are adopted into the state code are automatically adopted here. So new products like PEX for plumbing lines, water lines inside new construction, you do not have the ability to restrict their use, and they're just adopted as the state continues to advance its own codes. So for 2018, there are some new features, and this is what caused all the headaches for Barb as she was working on our local amendment. The 2018 code package is a slightly different configuration. There are a couple of items of note. The swimming pool and spa code was previously an appendix of the IBC. It's now its own standalone code. Similarly, the existing building code was an appendix of the IBC, is now a standalone independent standard. There are new deck regulations within the IRC that did not previously exist. And as was mentioned, the solar energy provisions, there was no previous version of that, and this adoption would include it. While we have this slide up, it's important to note that a lot of the, one of the reasons that we do like to keep on a schedule of every 6 years is that there are changes in the ICC codes in response to significant events, advancements in technology, et cetera, due to several incidents involving exiting from emergency situations involving large crowds. There are now crowd management requirements in both, I believe, the IFC and the IBC, correct? Is it a reference in both? So these things get updated from time to time based on the construction community and the emergency response community seeing a need to adjust as in response to new events. So the code update process, it's a collaborative effort. It takes quite a lot of time. The goal each time that we undertake this is an adoption of the cleanest possible code, the fewest number of local amendments while still advancing and continuing the policy decisions of the past. So in this case, I'll get into that in a minute, but in this case, one of the first things that Barb will do is take a look at the legacy amendments. How does the new code, new configuration, the new regulations, how do they reflect what we have already adopted in the Village of Wheeling, our legacy amendments? Have any of them been absorbed into the code, or is it necessary to re-adopt them? And then what does that mean? How do you take that previous policy decision and apply it in the new layout of the code? So a lot of the work that was done on the consulting end of this was ensuring that cascading effect of amendments was followed. We have, as Manager Svandilis mentioned at the beginning, we have no significant policy decisions in front of you. This truly is a continuation of the status quo. We're continuing the previous decisions that were made. We're continuing those in this adoption, in this update. the restrictions that we are continuing apply from the IBC and the IFC in multiple ways. The best example we could possibly give is continuation of our restriction on certain types, wood frame construction, for example. That amendment, if you take a look at the document in front of you, the adopting ordinance, that single amendment is probably accounting for half of the items that are in that ordinance. The IFC amendments drive the IBC amendments. They go together, so you need to make sure that the cross-references are all accounted for. One thing to point out here, the adjustment that we make based on staff experience, we do have a handful of local amendments that in our experience, and not just the local amendments, but we have a handful of requirements that between the fire department and community development, we have found the interpretation of that regulation may have led to confusion. And what we would like to do with these updates is make sure that we're using the opportunity to address that confusion, make sure that we're clarifying any regulation that we've had experience here, difficulty in dealing with fire restoration, for example. One final point, what we're doing this year, again, to try to reduce confusion, is we're producing a document, a guide for the development community, for architects, for contractors, to explain our local amendments. That the list of local amendments doesn't read, there's no narrative to it whatsoever. So we're going to produce a nice PDF and put it on the building permit application page. Let people look through more of a narrative style document, just a list. Here are the local amendments. Of course, they'll still be responsible for following the cascade effect throughout the code and understanding as a professional architect that they have to abide by it. But what we're going to try to do is be very clear with our intention and describe it in a really user-friendly way. And that should be available by March 1st. We'll update it as questions come in. But again, I want to thank everybody who's involved in this. It was no small feat, and it's very dry material, and I recognize that. But it is something that's very good for the community, and I think we're all very proud of what was done with it.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Mr. Lang, Trustee Lang.
Thank you. Nice job, everyone, on this. Question about any of these code changes, amendments, are they, any of them must fixes for residents in order to sell their house? Something that you have to do in order to, you know, it won't pass an inspection and so on?
If I understand your question, no, you can sell a house, generally speaking, as is. If there's a code requirement that somebody hasn't met, it's really up to the buyer and the seller to figure out how to proceed.
And is that the right approach to it, too? I know it's kind of buyer beware, but it would make more sense if there was a list of must fixes, and I'm sure Mike sees them all the time in his inspections, that if people knew that outlets needed to be replaced and GCFI and things like that, if I knew that, if I was selling my house in a few years and I knew that stuff had to be fixed, I'd rather do it now and enjoy those items as well, as opposed to do it at the last minute.
Well, the Village of Wheeling, we typically will stay out of the transaction. There is a home inspection for that purpose. It's a private transaction, and it's really up to the two parties. The exception to that is if we are aware of the violation, the way that it came to us was work without a permit, for example, and we stopped it, and it's sold in the middle of that, we will, at that point, at the time of the transfer certificate, we will notify that, hey, there is a flag in our system. This property does have a known issue in that work was started without a permit. You, as the buyer, we don't require them as part of that transaction. We let them know that there is an issue that hasn't yet been resolved.
Well, does it make sense at all if the village put together maybe a list of some basic fixes that said, hey, you know what, be proactive. These are some things you could do now to your home if you know, and it'll pay off for you down the road. By doing it now, it's probably cheaper. You're not under the gun to do it. And again, you can enjoy the money you just put in to do some of these fixes. I know I would, one of these days when I sell my house, I would like it to be in good shape for the next person who buys it and not just leave them with a mess or leave them with problems. And so is there something like that that people can be a little more proactive for, or can the village put something like that together that might help them?
We can look around. There may be something like that out there already. We might be able to just, you know, sort of an FAQ, I'm getting ready to sell my home, and, you know, we can link to another resource if something like that exists. It's not something that we have in-house and handy, ready to give over to somebody.
Okay. Just trying to be helpful to folks, because usually when you have to fix something like that after an inspection, it's when it's most expensive, because you need someone in there now to fix it in 2 days and before a closing, and it's expensive. So, and again, I'd rather enjoy the fact that I had put all this money in my house anyway than give it away at that point. So food for thought. I think it would be a good idea to do something proactive like that.
Trustee Kruger, or Trustee Lang, you finished?
Yes, I am.
Trustee Kruger?
Thank you, Mr. President. Andrew, there was some information in the packet regarding damage and destruction language that has been changed with regard to, I would imagine, a catastrophic fire or something in a home, and the requirement for the resident to have to bring their home, if it was pre these codes, up to the new codes. Could you explain that briefly so that we can understand what those thresholds are?
Sure, and this appears several times in that memo and several times in the list of local amendments. That is a good example of a continuation of an existing policy. The fire department and community development have had some experience in protracted debate with either a property owner, a property manager, an insurance company, et cetera. So what we're attempting to do with that, while it is an existing set of regulations that it's repeated in multiple codes, that the experience that we've had is that it may be confusing because it relates to the valuation of the destruction, the square footage of the destruction, and what caused the destruction. So we're trying to be totally clear with this amendment. So in general terms, in each of those code references, we want to make sure that regardless of how the damage occurred, whether it was through fire or
tornado
or intentional demolition, it is irrelevant. That amount of work is necessary to restore. That amount of work is necessary to upgrade, however you want to phrase it. So the idea of that is to address the demolition, intentional demolition is included in that list, so that you can't have a permit for the second floor to be remodeled, and then you go in and find that the first floor is demolished. The intent of our code is to require the code upgrades.
So it standardizes it so that there's less question for all parties involved in a restoration.
Exactly, and then removing some of the confusion in talking with the group, one of the ideas that came out of it was in order to standardize the valuation, we are now pointing to an objective resource, the Cook County assessed valuation, or Lake County, depending on the location. But the assessed valuation, which has, it's readily available, it's public record. There's no question of, well, did the insurance company value it one way and the contractor's valuing it another way? This is the valuation that we're going to utilize.
Right, or some internet-based thing that valued my house, you know, and that would be different than the Cook County. It's good to standardize it. I also just want to make a comment that I think the idea to have the manual of the local amendments to sort of summarize and humanize our local amendments will help future developers when they come in. So great job by everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Kruger. If there are no other questions or comments, we do need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion trustee Kruger, second trustee Vogel. Roll call.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes.
Item 13C, resolution authorizing the village president and clerk to execute an agreement for communication duct protection between the Village of Wheeling and Illinois Bell Telephone Company, LLC.
Mr. Janik.
Thank you. In January, the village board approved a change order for this project. This is the project that we're building a bridge structure across the diversionary channel at the north end of Wolf Court. The board approved a change order for this project of $267,000. And at that time, the memorandum indicated that we had tentative agreement with AT&T for them to pay the bulk of that change order amount. We didn't have it signed at that time or actually finally agreed. We suspected it was going to be approved, and it was approved. This agreement in front of you allows AT&T to pay for $236,000 of the change order that was approved in January. That's it.
Trustee Papantos.
Thank you, Director Janik. Now that we have all the approvals and the change orders in, and we know who's paying the bulk of this, and we're saving approximately 10 months by doing the ductwork, correct?
I would say at least 10 months. That's correct.
Where are we within our time frame on completing this project?
I don't have their schedule for completion, but I do know that they were working on site all last week. They were not working this morning, probably because of the snow, and they probably won't be working tomorrow. But they have been doing excavation work, particularly on the west side of the diversionary channel, because the bridge spans both sides of the diversionary channel. So they're preparing the west side. They were also excavating and exposing the AT&T duct on a Friday. So they're working. I suspect it's going to take them at least another month before we see the structure itself.
I noticed a crane out there today.
That's correct. The crane is to lift the sheet metal pieces so they can put those in the ground. But it's also there for locating the concrete structure itself. It's in pieces. The bridge is in pieces. It was precast. They'll bring it to the site in pieces and then lower it onto foundations.
Are we all going to walk across the bridge once it's done?
We can. There's some dirt on the other side, of course. It's no construction, but we can't do that.
Sorry. Thank you.
There are no other questions. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion trustee
Second.
Papantos, second trustee Kruger. Roll call, please.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. Official communications. Clerk Simpson, you have something for us.
Mail ballot after voting on the April 2nd election. Mail ballot applications are now available for the April 2nd, 2019 consolidated election. Contact the Cook County Clerk's office at www.cookcountyclerk.com, where you will be able to apply online or print the application form to be returned by mail. Mail ballot applications must be returned to Cook County by March 28th, 2019. And unfortunately, I have some sad news to say. Our annual Historical Society White Elephant is canceled for the month of February because of all the snow and ice. The board decided that it would not be a good time to hold it, and we will be postponing it until the weather gets better.
The elephants couldn't make it?
Didn't want to get lost in the snow.
So we had to cancel it because of the ice and snow. We never know when it's going to happen, so.
Trustee Vogel?
A couple of questions for John Melandrofy. John, if you would, could you give us kind of an update on the occupancy of North Gate crossings? How are they doing over there, et cetera?
Thank you, Trustee Vogel. Yes, You know, we're in the midst of about $300 million in various stages of development in the village, and Northgate Crossings was about a $50 million project, and they've reported that they are 94% occupied.
It's great. Also, the spec buildings, we have several spec buildings being built, along with the newest one on Northgate again. What's what type of leases do we have in the works with those as far as the square footage of that building that's being leased at this point, or will be under lease?
That property was about a vacant 12-acre property. We were able to attract a developer. They built a 181,000 square foot spec industrial building on that site. It's currently has a lease for 76,000 square feet of the building, which is 41%. They haven't occupied it yet, but they have a signed lease, and they're working with 2 other companies as we speak. The other building at 1075 Chaddock Drive, that was the old ABF trucking facility. It was not very productive. It was not being utilized. Its special use had expired. They built a 84,000 square foot industrial building spec on that property, and Hidden Valley Ranch leased 53,000 square feet of that building, bringing that to 63% occupancy. We're the 5th largest manufacturing concentration in the state of Illinois. So these spec buildings were the first spec buildings we had seen in over 2 decades in Wheeling. And it's being driven by all the e-commerce that's going on and the last mile delivery, and plus the resurgence in manufacturing. So it's nice to have new buildings in the pipeline to provide prototype industrial space for today's manufacturers and distribution facilities.
So there's definitely a need for that type of building.
Absolutely, and the property taxes that are generated on those properties, one was actually vacant land, so now we have a $10 to $20 million building on there, and that wasn't there before. And in the case of ABF, now we got a brand new spec building on that, and even Veland Metals, it wasn't spec, but they're building a 110,000 square foot building adjacent to their existing facility, and that's about a $25 million building. So it's definitely helping our industrial base and the village's tax base.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Trustee Vogel. Trustee Kruger and then Trustee Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief McIsaac, I can talk about St. Baldrick's, can't I? Okay, good. So one of my favorite events of the year is the annual St. Baldrick's annual head shaving event. This year will be held on Saturday, March 30th. That's where a number of the Wheeling firefighters and paramedics will be shaving their heads to help families and children who are fighting childhood cancers. Again, it is on Saturday, March 30th. The venue has changed for the first time in a bunch of years. This year it will be at the White Eagle Events and Convention Center at 6839 North Milwaukee Avenue in Niles. It will be from 12 noon until 4 p.m. It's a great family fun event in addition to the head shaving, which many of you know I have done. Trustees Vito and Vogel have done it. There's face painting, balloon artists, magicians, live music, 50-50 raffles, silent auctions. There's just a bunch of different ways to support this event, one of which is to go to this website and support our Wheeling firefighters. It's www.stbaldricks, that's STBALDRICS.org/events/Wheeling Fire 2019. So go out there, find a firefighter and donate some dough for their hair. That's it. Hope to see you there. We'll probably announce this again at another future meeting, but that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Kruger. Trustee Lang and then Trustee Pantos.
I was recently reminded by one of our residents that we're not doing a good job tonight speaking into the microphones, and I know I was a big violator of that because I was talking over here. So just a reminder to everybody, she didn't hear the oath either, and she said she loves watching our meetings, so I hate to disappoint, so just a reminder for everyone to speak in their mics, me included. Another important question is the pavement on Dundee Road. Our friends in Northbrook have enjoyed since 2016 a nicely paved Dundee Road. Is there any hope for Wheeling and Buffalo Grove and Palatine and so on, Arlington Heights, to get that same pavement because the road is just in awful shape everywhere?
I can speak on that. IDOT has decided to resurface Palatine Road this summer, at least the center lanes, not the side roads of Palatine Road, but Dundee Road probably will not be fully resurfaced for probably at least 4 years. They're going to be doing patching this summer or this spring on Dundee Road, but they won't be doing a full resurface like they did in Northbrook. One reason for that is that the expectation that there'll be substantial construction on Lake Cook Road. So unfortunately, they will be patched, but won't be resurfaced.
Disappointing, but thank you for the update.
While I'm on the microphone, just I'm sure everybody's watching the weather, but there is a pretty nasty looking storm coming. First snow, then maybe some freezing rain, and then rain tomorrow. So everybody be careful out there driving and walking.
Thank you, Mr. Janik. Thank you, Mr. Lang. Trustee Papantos?
Thank you. Tonight, during citizens' concerns and comments, we heard some innuendos from a resident who likes to speak into the microphone on a regular basis. There is no reason to believe that looking at the data from a key card is going to tell you anything at all. It just says this is when this particular key card was used. This evening, Trustee Lang and I walked into the building at the same time. It's my key card, so Trustee Lang, you must not be here.
I'm not here.
Obviously. It also doesn't tell you the amount of time that is contributed by our village manager on a regular basis, how many off-site meetings he may be attending, from Northwest Municipal Water Conference to SWANK to, I can go on and on. It's unending. I am tired of hearing people tell this board that we don't do a good job in reviewing managers' fondalis. I happen to know that he's available 24/7. I happen to know that a key card will not tell you when he leaves this building. And I myself have been on the phone with him fairly late at 6 or 7 at night, and he is still here working. There's a reasonable expectation from people. And it's time that we all hear the truth, not just somebody's, I think this is it, because she didn't get her way on whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Papantos. Relative to the airport, I would like to thank the Journal Topics for publishing the letter I sent out. Maybe the Trustee Herald will publish it, the Herald. If not, it's at the village website. There's a very good paragraph. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs long. I like the third paragraph. While the village is deeply committed to the continued success of Chicago Executive Airport and believes in the value of the master plan update process, we have previously stated and now reiterate that our first duty is always to safeguard the safety and prosperity and comfort of Wheeling community. Therefore, on behalf of all Village of Wheeling elected officials, I affirm that we strongly advocate the optimization of the airport's operations within its existing boundaries, but we do not and will not support expansion of the runways that would negatively impact our community or our neighbors. I thought that was fairly clear. However, let me make it clearer. I would not support extending the runways beyond the existing borders of the existing airport. I would not expand a runway. Just hope that's clear enough for anybody who's confused. You guys can chime in if you want about that. If you don't, whatever.
Yeah, I'll say.
Oh, go ahead, trustee Vito.
I just wanted to, Ms. Wilson had tagged me in a Facebook post indicating that I actually wrote that letter. I just want to clear for anybody who follows her on Facebook, I had nothing to do with the authoring of that letter. I was flattered that she thought I'd be the only one smart enough to have the diction to put that letter together.
I did compliment Joe on his author.
It is a little insulting to you, though, Pat, that you wouldn't be smart enough to write that. But I didn't write that, but I do agree with it. I think this is at least from the Wheeling side, maybe from the Prospect Heights side, it's different. I think it's a kind of a manufactured controversy. I just don't see the appetite for the runways going beyond the current borders from anyone on the board. I could be wrong on that. I don't want to speak for everybody. So I don't know how much more unequivocal we can be on it without people still thinking that we're being equivocal. I understand there's mixed messages coming from different places, but I think we've been pretty consistent, and I'd like to stay that way moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you. No other comments? You have before you the bills for January 31st through February 13th, 2019. I need a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Motion, trustee Papantos,
Second?
or not? Second, trustee Kruger. Roll call, please.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes, we do have an executive session tonight to discuss collective negotiating matters between public bodies and its employees or their representatives and pending probable or imminent litigation. As such, I need a motion to recess into executive session.
So moved.
Give the motion to trustee Lang, second to trustee Kruger. Roll call, please.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. Thank you all for coming.